We're facing a situation of the utmost delicacy. I need all my pieces on the board.
When IO Interactive first announced it was uptaking work on what was then known as Project 007, the internet collectively cheered. There was one practically unanimous reaction. This is a match made in heaven. Or is it? Because the Bond franchise has a strange, fluid nature to it. In some ways, it lines up perfectly with Hitman's sublime espionage and seductively beautiful yet nihilistic world of assassination. And yet Agent 007 is a totally different sort of character to Agent 47. The way Hitman feels in your hands is so specific, and no matter how perfect a fit IO Interactive might seem in other ways, could it really replicate this feeling for Bond?
Looking for these?
Hold on.
IO's take on Bond will live or die by the studio's ability to turn that difference into a strength rather than a weakness, and after seeing a chunk of hands-off first-light gameplay at IO Interactive's Copenhagen headquarters recently, it certainly looks like the team has done exactly that.
Gate crashing a black tie event. Haven't done that since final year.
Mission accomplished. The best of Hitman is carried through, but without compromising the key pillars required for Bond to be Bond. Central to this, of course, is Bond himself. Casting plays a role in this, with the announcement of Patrick Gibson as gaming's official 007 a crucial piece of the picture. But much of it is mechanical. Agent 47 moves deliberately and with a stiff, almost machine-like nature. He's literally a programmed contract killer, and so it makes sense that he is a little robotic. This also lines up well with Hitman's mechanics, where that highly telegraphed movement plays into making sure everything is clear, if an action is safe to perform, if you're in sight or stealth, and so on. But that really isn't Bond.
Looks like I've got a plane to catch.
007 is impulsive, fluid. He needs to move not with stiff deliberation, but with a silky instinct. IO has addressed this in the core movement. Bond is much slicker than 47, even doing something as simple as picking up an item off a table, but also in mechanics. If you're stealthing, when spotted, 47's only option is to get violent or leg it. As Bond, if you've got enough instinct, a limited resource, you can vocally bluff your way out of a situation. Bond can't toss coins, but he can confidently throw his voice to attract a guard. If he runs out of ammo in a gunfight, a last-ditch thing he can do is throw his gun at the head of his would-be assailant. If the situation is hectic and he needs to pick up a rifle on the ground, he'll stylishly kickflip it into his hands.
Can't stay here.
There's quite a lot mechanically going on here, and that's because in many ways, First Light feels like a game made up of many parts. A great big mingling of mechanics, ideas, and systems. This is a game that is less structurally fluid than Hitman's wide-open Rube Goldberg machine environments, but it's no less flowing. For instance, you might be in an exposition-heavy walk and talk, Moneypenny in Bond's ear, as a beautiful environment unfolds before you. You might be in a narrow, prescribed gunfight where you can choose if you want to be a little bit left or right, high or low, but ultimately you're in that gunfight. It also might be an extremely tightly scripted stealth sequence. Internally, IO Interactive refers to these sections as guided. Here, First Light indeed begins to resemble many action-adventure jaunts that we've played before, from Uncharted right back to some older Bond games like EA's Everything or Nothing. Between these guided sections are moments of core Bond gameplay though, and it's here where the Hitman heritage proudly flexes. You're placed into open situations with an objective, but how you accomplish it is up to you.
Afternoon, sir. Staff and press only.
Oh, damn. Forgot my press badge.
You're not the first.
Some of these areas might be vanishingly small compared to a Hitman level, but they are still Hitman in essence. In the publicly available early game mission shown in the State of Play, we see Bond arrive at a beautiful building, home to some lavish gathering of the great and good. He needs to get inside, and the entrance to the building itself is a mini Hitman level. There's a few different options for how to gain entry, but how exactly you approach that situation is up to you. Once inside, the game switches to a guided section, directing you along a stricter path to keep the story moving. Even in this small example, the differences and similarities to Hitman are laid bare. Bond is a little more constrained than 47. He isn't going to injure civilian security guards for no reason, for instance. He also isn't going to do crazy, stupid things. Walk close to a ledge that can be vaulted to reach an open window while a guard is watching, for instance, and the game straight up won't let you do it. The Vault UI element appears, but is carefully crossed out. In Hitman, you could press the button and let all hell break loose as the guards go into overdrive. Indeed, Hitman is the sort of game where an accidental input, a shot fired by mistake, a door opened by a miscue, can ruin your run by design. For Bond, everything is a little more contained. You can vault that wall, but you'll need to create a distraction first.
What? Let's see. What is... Odd.
The same is true for killing. In what is an incredibly clever use of the Bond iconography, you can't just open fire willy-nilly. When Bond is in a situation where enemies are clearly out to kill him, a flashy UI element unfolds on screen, declaring "License to Kill." At this point, Bond is weapons-free. This is a key differentiator from Hitman 2. In a grand party, you can't just get an assault rifle and spray the room. This isn't how Bond does things. There's still immense room for creativity, however. It's just a different kind of creativity with less potential for unwarranted collateral. Say you need to get into a hidden area. Bond isn't donning disguises, at least not like 47 does, although there will be story-specific dress-up here and there. So you'll need alternatives. In some ways, this is familiar to Hitman. In a mirroring of that game's Paris level, you might choose to pose as a member of a camera crew. For that, you'll need to socially charm the presenter with dialogue options to convince her you are indeed her replacement camera operator. And you'll also need to track down a camera in the venue to use, which can be done in one of at least 3 ways. To even learn of this opportunity, though, you'll need to catch ambient dialogue, overhearing while circling the area that a TV producer is missing their cameraman. Alternatively, you could just sneak in, or you could pickpocket a pass from another guest, if you're slick enough. On and on it goes, the game state shifting depending on your objectives and the path you take to them.
What's that?
All of this suggests a game that is segueing from state to state. If you alert enemies in stealth but then quickly take out all of those alerted, a UI element will confirm that it's situation controlled. Again, a subtle difference to Hitman, where situations could snowball easily. Some of that Hitman paranoia and panic appears to be gone, but it's replaced with swagger, because that's who Bond is. In terms of controlling such situations, Bond has more flashy options than 47 too. He's got a range of Q gadgets to distract, smoke bombs, knockout darts, and so on. He can use his pure brass neck to convince a suspicious guard he's meant to be there, though Hitman's Enforcer-style guards are back and will always see through Bond's bluff. If things resolve to combat without that license to kill being activated, however, it's fisticuffs in a tactile and frenetic combat system that's full of using enemies' momentum against them, flinging them this way and that, countering, parrying. It animates with enormously satisfying physicality and has shades of things like Batman Arkham and Mad Max. It's a far cry from 47's QTE-driven over-in-seconds hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, 009. You're next.
And this brings us back to First Light being a game of many parts. Hitman stealth and open-endedness is here in places, but then there's that counter-heavy combat, Uncharted-style spectacle, and tight but scrappy-looking third-person shooting. Oh, and there's even drifty arcade-looking driving as well.
Eyes on the road.
Even in those segments that do resemble Hitman, it differs. Bond can chat to people more, and there's dialogue options and branching conversations where you can talk your way through situations with 007's famous charm, rather than having to sneak or subvert.
You need to cut some corners.
Careful what you wish for.
In GoldenEye 007, Bond is basically the Doom guy. There's the odd gadget or bit of hacking here and there, but he's mowing down wave after wave of Soviet soldiers or terrorists. By Everything or Nothing, the developers had folded in things like car chases and maybe even the occasional spying sequence, but it was more or less all action. IO wants to take a more holistic view of the character and look at Bond from all angles rather than just action, giving us a 360-degree Bond experience, so to speak.
Look out! Buckle up.
James Bond is charming and he's creative, and IO Interactive wants its game to reflect all of that, which is why you're as likely to find yourself in a social space as in a linear shootout. Equally, those social spaces take a different form to Hitman, more constrained in some ways, but more open in others, such as with his ability to talk to key NPCs. Much of this is stuff that 47 would never do to this extent, if at all, and so it would be wrong to describe this game as simply Hitman with more action. It is definitely more. Bond is one of the coolest characters in all of media, and so of course IO Interactive's desire is that players be in control of him when he's performing his most impressive feats. The grandest remaining hurdle that Agent 007 needs to pass through, though, is to be playable. So far, IO Interactive has been talking the talk and showing us stuff that looks fabulous, but shooting can look slick and scrappy in video, but then feel awful in practice. The flow of a social space can look great in a snappily edited video, but feel weird in-game. All of this remains to be tested before we can get truly excited, of course, but if IO Interactive's walk channels Bond's smirking swagger and is as strong as their talk, 007 First Light has the potential to be an all-timer.
Need to hit your ride!
Now is a great time to score some incredible games through Humble Choice. Live now through to October 2nd, you can grab WWE 2K25, Destiny 2 Legacy Collection, The Plucky Squire, Return to Monkey Island, and more. Whether you're building up your backlog or discovering something new, this is the perfect time to pick up these fan favourites. Plus, every purchase supports a good cause, with this month's featured charity being Team Rubicon. Get a curated mix of PC games every month, all for just £11.49 a month.